Happy Friday the 13th, everyone! I'm so stoked about today that I had to make a video to mark the occasion. I'm a huge fan of the iconic film franchise, and one of my favorite entries related to the series is Freddy vs. Jason. That was a movie that every horror fan was clamoring for, and minus Kane Hodder not playing Jason, it lived up to and exceeded all of my expectations. It was so cool seeing these genre icons duke it out, but it was a shame that there was never a video game tie-in. Fortunately for us, a ROM hack was created so that players could step into the shoes of the Springwood slasher. Can the NES handle the sheer epic force of this colossal event? Let's find out. Roll footage! Nope. That's the wrong hack. Not that there's anything wrong with that one, but when I think of Friday the 13th, Super Mario Bros. Is the last thing that comes to mind. No, I'm talking about the one created by Pack and Sack Dave, the one that's based on a much more appropriate release. Ah, that's the one. Or two, actually, since Pack and Sack Dave also created a Jason vs. Freddy hack, which I'll be talking about as well. So, without further ado, let's take a trip to Crystal Lake to see if these hacks are worthy of the cinematic clash of the Terror Titans. If it wasn't obvious from the title screens, Freddy vs. Jason and Jason vs. Freddy are hacks of the Atlas-developed, LJN-published Friday the 13th. If you've seen my previous review of that game, then you pretty much know what to expect from these. The message about the fireplaces pops up after choosing a character, just like in the original release, but this time the text is a quote from the nursery rhyme from the original Nightmare, so this has Freddy's stamp all over it from the beginning. Instead of playing as the teenage counselors, Freddy himself is the hero of this ROM hack, and instead of the standard rocks as the starting weapon, it's his claws, which are represented by the pitchfork. For those who don't know, the pitchfork is the strongest weapon from Friday the 13th, so Krueger has quite an advantage over the hockey mask wearing Psycho. Conversely, Voorhees is the playable character in Jason vs. Freddy, and he's armed with a machete. The machete is his signature weapon, so that makes sense, but it's puny in comparison to the pitchfork, so Jason's fighting a much more uphill battle in comparison. Fortunately, the torch trick from Friday the 13th still applies here, so make sure to equip that so all of the Jasons are at the peak of their abilities. Just like in the LJN title, the playable character has to fight against a variety of lesser enemies in addition to Voorhees. The counselors in Friday the 13th had to fend off zombies and birds in order to keep the kids safe, but these hacks flip that notion on its head by making the counselors the bad guys. They sprout out of the ground at random intervals, just like the zombies. They're really easy to get around or dispatch, especially since the pitchfork and machete takes them out with one hit. Be careful with jumping though, as just like in the LJN published release... Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Weaker weapons frequently appear in the air, so try to stick to walking as much as possible. An interesting change in this hack is that if one character gets an item, then they all have it. This can be really helpful, especially when all of the characters had sweaters after I beat Pam Voorhees and the floating Krueger head. However, it can also be very detrimental, since if one character accidentally gets a weaker weapon, then they all have it. Much like the intro fireplace scene, the day-to-day transitions stick to the format of those in the original game, but they're altered to include mentions of dreams and other Krueger-appropriate themes. This, of course, ties in with the Elm Street mythos. The dream world is Freddy's playground and where he has the greatest advantage, so Jason escaping his dream in Jason vs. Freddy tips the scale in his favor. Other than that, besides the large health pack substituting for the vitamins, everything else is pretty much the same. The protagonist traverses the Crystal Lake region waiting for the killer alarm to go off. When it does, Jason or Freddy has to enter the cabin under attack to battle the opposing monster. Of course, since these hacks are devoid of children, the alarm here is mainly used as a means to signify Jason or Freddy is in a cabin. In fact, there isn't even a timer for the alarm. It stops at a certain point, but there's no indication for when it will happen. Basically, as far as I can tell, there's really no penalty for failing to reach a cabin in time, but it's best to make it in order to keep forward momentum going.
The fights are exactly the same as the original. He's slow on day 1, faster on day 2, and I'm assuming a total nightmare on day 3. I'm assuming because I never ventured into the cabins and just fought him on the path on that day. My best advice is to just wait for the alarm to go off and stay in front of the cabin that he's in. Once the alarm ends, the killer should be out on the trail ahead. Just keep on spamming the attack and follow him as he ventures off screen. Sooner or later, victory will be attained. The ending screens are kind of disappointing in that they're exactly the same, but they just swap the names around. Plus, it doesn't really make sense for Freddy. He's an undead child killer. He doesn't have to sleep. Regardless, this is just a ROM hack, and Pack and Sack Dave did fine with what he had to work with, so I'll give it a pass.
All in all, I really dig these ROM hacks. Pack and Sack Dave obviously had to work within the limitations of the pre-existing title, but he did a good job of capturing the spirit of what an 8-bit game based on the crossover would be like. In regards to the difficulty, if you've beaten Friday the 13th, then you should have no problem with this. The health packs are abundant, the stock weapons are stronger, and best of all, there are no kids to protect. With the help of the power-up item group sharing feature, I had both of these finished in less than 45 minutes, and I barely lost any characters. Which makes sense since they're Freddy freaking Krueger and Jason freaking Voorhees. It felt good to finally have a taste of what we could have had with the original premise of the NES Nightmare release. If you're a fan of horror movies like I am and are looking for a way to make your Friday the 13th more Friday the 13th-like, then be sure to download these hacks. Just take care of these few simple steps, load it up in your emulator of choice, and you'll be partaking in the battle of the century in no time. As for me, I'm going to have a movie marathon. But before I do, I'm going to leave you with a few videos to watch. Probably just a couple, because I don't think I'll have room for more than 2. So somewhere to the side of me, you'll see my latest video, the Sonic 3D Blast episode of Innocent Till Proven Guilty. You should check that out. And I'll also check out, if you haven't watched already, I'll include my Friday the 13th LJN Defender. So, because I mean, it ties in perfectly with this since it's Friday the 13th and all, so you're going to want to give that a watch. So click that whichever side it is. Also, for anybody who's new to the channel, I'm going to put the red box over there with Jake and Pong. So you can subscribe to the channel if you want to, if you like what you see. So you'll be able to keep up with all my content that way. So I'll be back with another new episode next week. But until then, watch these videos, click subscribe if you haven't already. And also be sure to check out multitap.com, a new site that me and a group of other YouTubers just formed. There's a lot of cool content there. You got a Tetris challenge there. Got a cool collaboration between Super Derek and Jimmy Hoppa of Import Gaming for the Win. There's also the TheWiiGuy's new series, Can You Force It? So there's a lot of good stuff there. So definitely go to multitap.com and I'll put the link for that in the description as well. So until next week, have a very happy Friday the 13th. I know I will. So I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.